Remember that I said that in allowing for a head of state who violated and attacked the Constitution to be brought in to lead that Constitution again, that was basically legitimizing, replacing the constitutional rule of law with a Trump rule of law. I said this, and people said that was theory. Is it fucking theory now? Is it theory now? Because all of this was preventable. And I don't see myself as being smarter than the people in DC. So for them to not have this foresight that this was going to occur, when it's literally written as to how this does occur and how if you give legitimacy to someone like this, someone like the one up there, that it allows for them to have the audacity to worsen and worsen and worsen. And we allowed for this to happen. Why? Why? Because they were scared of a civil war occurring. Why? Apparently, they didn't want to invoke Amendment 14, Section 3, because they felt it would go to Scottish, which it eventually would. And obviously, we know how that would end up, and I would assume that that's why they didn't want to put that forth, because once Scottish votes in a favor of, the one who is up there, that will lead to civil unrest. So instead of giving that a try, they said, hey, we'll rather sacrifice the liberties of Americans and safeguard the perceived confidence that Americans have in institutions, because if the court's position for the insurrectionists, then it erodes trust, right? So they'll rather save the facade of the institutions working than to safeguard our constitutional liberties. So in this reality, they basically said, hey, even though the rule of law is not being respected up there, it's better to keep that facade, because if the people on the bottom know that the rule of law isn't being respected, that will lead to anarchy and civil unrest. And we don't want that. So let's dive headfirst into tyranny by not objecting against this election. How did this work out? How did this work out? Because I've been shouting about this even before election, about how all of this was going to turn out. And it happened exactly as I positioned. The fact that we basically welcomed him to subvert the Constitution. We welcomed him to become where the rule of law is derived. And this was preventable. In all reality, it was this not preventable. They just didn't maximize on the constitutional resolve that they were capable of getting. Why? Because they perceived that they were going to lose anyways. But in allowing for this to continue and allowing for this to transition, we lost more than we could have ever lost, even had there been civil unrest after Scottish judges how we thought they would. And I'm tired of the Democratic Party lying to you, acting like it didn't have any resolve, when I don't see myself as the brightest person in the country. It's no doubt that people within the DC arena knew exactly what resolve was available and consciously rejected it. This party is either too gullible or is too negligent to actually have resolved anything. And I need you to understand this. The Democratic Party as a collective, not as individuals, because Jasmine Crockett has been screaming AOC, blah, 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 right? As a collective, they willingly chose to dive us into a tyranny because they thought we wouldn't notice. They thought we wouldn't notice. They thought it wouldn't get this far. They thought that Republicans would do the right thing. Why did Adam Schiff invite the January 6th cop? He wanted to pull on the strings. It doesn't work because they told us what they wanted. This is their Mount Everest. They're not going to go down because they spent way too much and this to give up right now. And Democrats and choosing decorum. This is the end. It was preventable. It didn't even try. And I don't want you to forget that. I don't want you to forget that, because I know that I'm not the most brilliant one here. I'm going to tell you again. So if I can understand what we had resolved and they didn't even put that forth to even try, it means that either they were complicit or they were merely having apathy to even having any pursuance of even challenging this, because they themselves perceive that as being legitimate, which ignores the Constitution itself. And we understand this because there's not one senator who didn't at least vote for one of Trump's cabinet picks, which is frustrating because my senator, Adam Schiff, did a Blue Sky post about how he's a dictator, the one up there. But it's like you voted for some of these dictators' cabinet picks. And mind you, they would have gone in anyway, so why give them the support? This has been an immense failure from the party because this isn't new. Project 2025 isn't new. It's been decades that they've been shouting it out loud, hey, this is what I want to do. And Democrats have failed to even try to stop that. And that's because they just put their hand in the sand and say, hey, we need funding, let's focus on something else. And now we're here. And they're not guiding us. And I think that's what frustrates me the most. The part that they keep saying that the boat isn't sinking. And it is. It is because we see it. But they keep lying to us. And I think that's the most offensive thing. That an entity, an organization that we trusted to guide us through this storm refused to do it. And merely stood by in complicity to uphold this illegitimate regime and ultimately allowed us to willfully give ourselves to it in the hopes that appeasing it will produce some sort of peace, when in fact they knew this wouldn't come. It's offensive. It's offensive that the Democratic Party will now act as if they couldn't do anything to stop this, or as if they didn't know that this would come. I knew because I've been talking about it. And unless I'm sort of prodigy, which I don't think I am, this collective of a party should not be forgiven for this reality of the next video that I will upload.